And it's 9:15 here on a Monday morning here at AM 1700 WRCR Haverstraw, WRCR.com. And joining us again, as she does every Monday, is Tina Traster, the brains behind RCBizJournal.com. Good morning, Tina. How are you?
Good morning, Rockland County, and good morning, Jeff.
Thank you.
Nice to hear that he's back.
I'm chopping.
Not only is he back, I'm back. Yeah, I'm back.
Well, welcome back to everybody.
Thank you so much.
So, interesting story that we published last week. Everybody in the world has passed the Restaurant Depot building on 303 for years and years. Yes.
Indeed,
sorry.
of course.
The Restaurant Depot, the big warehouse building down on 303.
Yeah, what about it? I missed what you said.
Okay, yeah. So an interesting use of that building is coming.
Is it no longer Restaurant Depot?
No, Restaurant Depot is there, but on top of Restaurant Depot, that a portion of that giant space, which has been empty for 9 years,
right?
And that's kind of one part that's interesting here is how long that space had been vacant. But what is now slated to be there is a brewery and like a brew pub or nightclub. And this is from the people from New City, the people that we know as District 96. A couple of weeks ago, we wrote about them as part of a group of restaurateurs that were opening up a spate of locations in Piermont. But this company, this group, it's a group of three guys who own District 96, and they own the Blue Fig and a couple of other restaurants, and of course District 96 in New City. They're really in an impressive expansion mode, and I guess when they were looking around for space, what they ultimately settled on and what they think is a really good bet is to be essentially in an industrial park. And this is interesting because it's not just the brewery side, which of course is, yes, that's an industrial use, but it's also the retail component here, which includes a brew pub that is going to have, music, and of course will serve the brew that, the beer that they make, and presumably will have, food. And so it's interesting, I think, because I think we're looking at how property is used. We're looking at our downtowns and saying, shouldn't we put, isn't this where we should concentrate housing for millennials or empty nesters? And we're looking at, warehousing, and we're asking the question of what can our warehousing sectors manage, and what is a use that goes possibly too far and is too onerous. And so this project is on track now. They needed some approvals from the town of Orangetown. They had to get a use variance because of this. The brew pub was actually defined as a nightclub, and of course they're going to have some issues with traffic because there's an issue with a left turn out of the complex onto Route 303, and so.
Yeah, unless they have a light there specifically for them, no one's going to be making a left there during busy hours. Right.
Well, right. So that's these people, they're going to
not safely anyway.
Right. They're going to be coming out of there at night, and so it's. I think it's an interesting thing. Like I said, this space has been vacant for 9 years, and we see a lot of fallow and vacant spaces around the county, and also, there's an ongoing conversation as towns are redoing or have redone their comprehensive plans. There's a deeper dive right now as to how property should be used. Now, on the topic, however, of warehousing, here too, we see a sort of a dichotomy of desires, which is on the one hand, and we've talked about this, we all want everything delivered yesterday. And at the same time, we're sensitive to, what spilling the truck traffic onto our roads means for our health and our environment and our peace of mind and safety. I'd say the most controversial project right now that's kind of in the mix is Lincoln Equities, which is trying to build an enormous warehouse, an unprecedented enormous warehouse over on right off 303 in Valley Cottage. But one thing that we ran a
but what are municipalities supposed to do? I mean, they all get complaints about taxes being too high. They get complaints about this or that. I mean, you've got to do something, right? I mean, at what point can we stop and just say, you know what, that's a good use of our money?
Well, this is the question I'm actually raising. So one thing we had Paul Adler of Rand Commercial did an interesting column, and I'll just raise, and then let me just take this a step further. There's something called the ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, and this is a benchmark by which traffic studies are done. And the ITE recognizes at least 5 different types of warehouses and has different land use codes for each one. In terms of what it deems an ordinary warehouse or distribution center, fulfillment center, cold storage warehouses, because warehouse as a generic term, doesn't really look into the weeds of how traffic is generated. So here is a suggestion if our municipal leaders are listening this morning. Most municipal codes lump these things all together into a general warehouse category. And this does not recognize the variety or intensity of the uses of these warehouses. So, for example, a warehouse for moving and storage with a few trucks is much less intensive use than, say, an Amazon or a UPS facility, which is going to bring in masses of goods and fleets all day long. I believe with this Lincoln Equities, they estimate 250 trucks a day. And if, talk about 303, if anybody knows where that part of 303 is,
it's already dangerous, yeah. Yeah,
anybody can probably objectively see that that's a nightmare waiting to happen. But one lesson that again, town leaders and officials and planners should be thinking about is some preemptive zoning codes that should reflect what is allowable for different types of warehousing rather than just kind of treating it generically. Because it's almost like a running sort of, it's not a joke, but it's almost like, you go to the planning board and these companies come in and they say, this will have no impact on traffic. And, it's at the point where the planners of Clarkstown, for example, say, well, that might be what the study shows, but we live here and we know differently. So I think that we need, that we need to, as we're changing our comprehensive plans and looking at land use and trying to balance the need for mitigation against taxes and business growth and be a friendly county to business while at the same time preserving our air and our some quality of life. I think it's going to be necessary to look at how warehouses are classified more closely and to codify them, and so that when these projects come before planning boards, the planning board members have a guideline that's more meaningful than what they use now, which is more like it's just one definition, and then they have to balance that against what they know and their instincts, and so it puts them between a rock and a hard place. And with this particular project, the Lincoln Equities proposal, they're going to be back before Clarkstown's TAC, Technical Advisory Committee, this week, and I don't know this is absolute, but I know that if they are going back to the TAC committee, they're going to be proposing some changes. One hurdle that they have is they want to build a building that's taller than what's allowable, and so they would have to go to the zoning board for that. And that could be, that could put the kibosh on their warehouse. Now, if they're to bring that project down by, I think it's 4 or 5 feet, then they can skip the zoning approvals, and they simply have to, get by the planning board. And again, it really, I think with that project, apart from the scale of it and the view shed, as it's known, I think it really boils down to an issue of, can we really tolerate that many trucks spilling onto Route 303? So.
I know there's a movement also. I don't know if you heard earlier in the week, we were talking to Supervisor Teresa, well, last week, but we did it in the news yesterday, on Friday rather, was that they're looking to, the truck traffic that was once going over Route 9W years ago, that was then rerouted down to 340, has remained on Route 340, which is also not far from 303. But that truck traffic is still going through downtown Spark Hill, very ill-equipped roads for giant truck traffic that spills out onto 303 at some point. If you're talking about getting more trucks that continue to go through that area, you're talking about a major inconvenience for a very small hamlet.
It's absolutely. I mean, that place is just a minute big. I mean, it's, blink and you miss it, and it's all very hairpin, twisty turns down there.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a problem, Houston. We want our stuff. we want it yesterday. We like this e-commerce economy, despite what it does to retailing. But at the same time, we don't properly monitor our air. I think the air monitors for the county are up at like Davies Farm where the apples grow. But we do know the pain of sitting on 303. We do know what it's like to be stuck behind. Lately, if you're in a car, if you're in a normal car or even an SUV, and you look up, I mean, who is not sandwiched lately by trucks on every side? It's really noticeable. If it was a slow creep, the pandemic made it absolutely noticeable. Where every time you look up, or even if you have your windows open, say, in a car, and that whoosh, of the trucks around you all the time, it's a tough one. But the thing is one thing I would say is that, whenever there's just very piecemeal kind of planning in a place, you end up with a hodgepodge. You don't end up with good policy. You don't end up with something. So, you can go from 303 in Orangetown to 303 in Clarkstown, have completely different rules, and how does that work? So, I don't know, how it all comes together, because we live in a place where it is very home rule oriented, but in terms of the traffic and the trucks on the road, it's a county-wide issue. And
it sounds like we're about to make the case for drone home delivery. Get that service coming up instead.
Here we go.
Let's start that business.
Here we go. You and I, we're going to start a thing.
And then we can all quit our day jobs.
Yeah, well, Jeff Bezos has already cornered the market on that, so I think we're too late anyway.
You never know. Competition is the American way.
We could try. Hey, Tina, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week. Where do people find out more about rcbizjournal.com and what you guys do over there and how they can sign up for stuff?
rcbizjournal.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter that comes every morning at 7. Drop us a line if you have a story idea. We have all sorts of advertising and sponsorship packages. We are keeping Rockland informed, and we want to hear from everybody.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again next week, Tina.